So, have you ever looked at a college tuition bill and just thought, there's no way this is still worth it? I mean, it's a huge question, especially with student debt being what it is. But what if I told you the data points to a really fascinating and honestly a pretty surprising answer?
Okay, let's just dive right into this, because it's a paradox that affects millions of us, right? We hear about the student debt crisis constantly, and yet at the same time, the economic advantage of having a degree has never, ever been greater. How can both of those things be true?
Let's start with the number that gives everybody anxiety. We're talking about national student loan debt in the U.S. ballooning to over $1.3 trillion. That's a T. It's a figure that just hangs over the financial future of an entire generation.
But then you see this number, an extra $1.2 million in lifetime earnings for someone with a bachelor's degree compared to a high school grad. So how do you square that circle? To figure it out, we've got to first understand the basic rules of how your pay is even set in the first place.
Right, so to solve this whole puzzle, we have to go back to square one. We need to get our heads around the fundamental theory of how any paycheck actually gets determined.
So, in the simplest terms, it works like this. A company hires you because you help them make money. It's just business. So, logically, they're never going to pay you more than the value you actually bring into the business.
You know, think of it this way. If your work as a barista helps the shop sell an extra, say, $20 worth of coffee every hour, well, a rational owner is going to pay you up to that $20 an hour. In a perfect theoretical world, your wage is tied directly to your productivity. But you and I both know the world isn't always so perfect.
Yeah, in reality, things get a whole lot more complicated. And that's because of these power imbalances between the people who hire and the people who work. And this isn't a new idea. Over a century ago, the economist John Bates Clark pointed out this fundamental imbalance. An individual worker, they need the job a lot more than the employer needs that one specific person. This power gets taken to the extreme in a situation that economists call a monopsony. Just picture a small town where there's only one hospital or one giant factory. That single employer has immense, almost total power to set wages, because where else are you going to work?
And this is where you really see the difference. On one hand, you've got a competitive market where companies are fighting each other for good workers, and that drives wages up. But on the other hand, in a monopsony, the employer can pay less and hire fewer people because the workers are basically trapped. They have no other options.
So what's the answer? How do workers try to level that playing field? Well, they organize. Labor unions are all about trying to change that power dynamic by negotiating as a single powerful group. That's what we call collective bargaining.
And you can't argue with the results. Unions have a real impact. On average, they secure about 20% higher wages for their members. Now, there's an argument that this can lead firms to hire fewer people. But the bigger story for us right now is that union power itself has dropped off a cliff over the past 50 years. A lot of that is due to things like globalization and the decline of manufacturing.
But these power imbalances, they aren't the only thing that messes with our simple model. The playing field is also made unlevel by, you guessed it, discrimination.
And this chart just lays it all out. Despite decades of progress, huge earnings gaps are still very much a reality. Even when you compare workers with similar education and experience, on average, women earn about 80 cents for every dollar a man earns, and black workers earn about 75 cents for every dollar a white worker earns.
And look, a whole series of landmark laws were passed to try and fix this, making discrimination flat out illegal. But as we just saw, these laws haven't completely erased the gaps, which are just so deeply tied to historical disadvantages in education and opportunity. Okay, so after digging through all these complexities, power, unions, discrimination, let's circle all the way back to our original question and finally put the pieces together. Why is a degree worth so much, especially when it costs so much?
So here it is, the core of the answer. And fair warning, it might be the exact opposite of what you'd think. The incredible value of a college degree today, it isn't just about what the graduates gain, it's about what the non-graduates have lost. And this is the absolute key. Our entire economy has fundamentally changed. Those really good-paying manufacturing jobs, the kind that could support a middle-class family with just a high school diploma, well, they've largely vanished. The modern economy demands skills that you get after high school. So, the demand for college-educated workers has exploded, while the wages and opportunities for everyone else have frankly plummeted.
So that massive $1.2 million number, It's not just some bonus for graduates. It's a reflection of the huge economic penalty for not having a degree in today's labor market. The gap between those two groups, it hasn't just widened, it's become a chasm.
And that really leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? In an economy that so clearly and, sometimes brutally rewards specialized knowledge, the most important investment you can make isn't just in a piece of paper, but in your own skills.